and welcome to another episode in this educational series. My name is Miss Pilgrim, and I'm going to take you through the wonderful world of internal text structure. By the end of this session, I hope that you will be able to identify the structures of informational text, recognize transitional words that signal specific text structures, analyze simple details, and represent them in graphic organizers. So, sometimes when you're trying to read informational text, it can be very confusing. However, if you learn to pay attention to internal text structure, it won't be so hard. So I'm going to take you through the paces of how to do that. So when I think of the term internal text structure, and I look at the word structure, I think about building things. I think about construction. I think about the word construct. And so that's exactly what internal text structure is. Internal text structure really means organizational structures or organizational patterns that you can find within a text. And so, just as how architects plan how to build houses, writers plan what they want to write. And when it comes to informational text, they use internal text structures to help them organize their writing. So, if we think about our writing like a house, we can use internal text structures to organize what's happening in that house. And in these series of lessons, we're going to be exploring four main types. One will be description. Another will be sequence. Yet another will be comparison and contrast. And the final one will be cause and effect. For every text structure, think about this, for every text structure, you will have a purpose. There will be an associated graphic organizer, and there are going to be specific signal transitional words that will help you figure out what kind of structure it is. So let's get on to our first structure, which is description. Now, the purpose of description internal text structure is to give information about or the characteristics or features of a topic. Because that's what describe means, to give more information about something. And so, if a writer is choosing this type of internal text structure, he or she will have a topic and will talk about details related to that topic. So, for example, I like hummingbirds. If I want to write about hummingbirds, I might think about talking about size of hummingbirds. I might think about the flying abilities of hummingbirds. And I might also think about the migration patterns of hummingbirds. Let's see how this works in an actual passage. When you find a passage that has the description internal text structure, you're going to see some signal words. So let's look at them. You're going to look for transitional words like, for example, for instance, such as, looks like, also, another, in addition. Because this is a description, of course, you would also expect to find adjectives and adverbs because, that's what they do. And in this particular structure, you're going to find lots of details about what you are going to write about or what you're reading about. So let's get an example of a passage that uses this structure, the description internal text structure. It's all about hummingbirds because, as I said before, I like hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are the smallest of all birds. Most species measure between 7.5 to 13 centimeters. A hummingbird's wingspread is barely 10 centimeters. That is shorter than the length of some people's fingers. Some consider hummingbirds to be the best flyers of all birds because they can travel fast as well as far. A hummingbird is capable at any time of flying straight up in the air, flying backwards and moving its wings so rapidly that it can remain in one spot in the air. Also, despite their tiny wingspread, hummingbirds travel annually between the United States and Central and South America. What an interesting passage about hummingbirds. So let's look at the structure and how what we talked about before can help us decode this passage a bit. Remember, we're going to be looking for specific characteristics and details. We're going to be looking for adjectives and adverbs, and if there are signal words, let's review what they are. So we're going to look at this passage again. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see what the details are. Because this is a description test structure, there are many details about hummingbirds. We find about details about the size, the wing spread, the way they fly, their migration patterns. All of these things are included in this passage. Let's see if there are any signal words. Do you remember what they are? Way at the bottom of that paragraph, you see one signal word, and that is also. And that word also tells me that everything behind it would be details about the hummingbird. And the also introduces some more details about these hummingbirds. Let's see if we see any adjectives in this passage, because in the structure, you would expect to find adjectives. So we find some adjectives here, as well as some adverbs. So this is really in keeping with the structure of the description, internal text structure. Look at them carefully. All right. So, using all of this information, if you get a question, name 2 characteristics of a hummingbird, do you think you can think about the characteristics of a hummingbird based on that passage? Let's go back to it. I'll give you a few seconds to reread this passage. Look carefully for the characteristics, the signal words, and the adjectives to find your answer. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out what characteristics about hummingbirds. First of all, we find that hummingbirds are the smallest of all birds. So one characteristic might be that they are small. This is a specific detail about the length, the size of the length of the hummingbird. So they measure between 7.5 and 13 centimeters. That might also be a characteristic of a hummingbird. We learn here that they travel fast. So that speaks to the ability of the hummingbird to fly. That could also be considered a characteristic of a hummingbird. They can travel fast. We also learn that they can travel far. That may be another characteristic you want to think about. So we have some so far. So, based on those answers, what are 2 characteristics you found about a hummingbird? Well, you can choose any of these. They are very small. They may measure between 7.5 and 13 centimeters. They have the ability to fly at great speed. And they also have the ability to fly at great distances. All of these details we found from this text structure. So, let's quickly review what we learned today. 1, an internal text structure is a way that writers organize their writing. Each text structure has its own purpose and its own signal words. Each structure can be organized in a particular graphic organizer. And the description text structure, which we learned about today, is used to show the characteristics of something. I hope you enjoyed this little lesson, and stay tuned for lesson 2, where we will look at another text structure. Thank you for joining us.